So hi there, it is the 13th of July. I'm recording this and I should publish this today. So welcome to episode 19 of Everything Dog Training podcast with myself, John McGuigan, Glasgow dog trainer and behaviour consultant. So if it's your first time to the podcast, welcome and thank you. Thank you for, hopefully we'll get you back. You'll enjoy listening to this and get some good information from it. And if you're returning, many thanks to you. So regardless of whether it's your first time or you're coming back to listen to me again, I know how much content there is on podcasts or on Spotify and iTunes, YouTube podcasts and wherever else you find your podcast. I know how much content there is, both in dog training and in other subjects. So the fact that you're spending time with me, I really appreciate it. So sincerely, thank you. We're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about arousal and how it relates to your dog. A couple of things. Just wanted to give you some information about a few things that have happened this week. So generally I'll have a topic or I'll have a guest speaker, but there's kind of wee bits and bobs that I wanted to share with you as well in a kind of longer form content. So I'm working with a retired police dog just now. So it's a Malinois and she's 5 years old, just been rehomed, and we're teaching the dog to switch off. So what has happened with this dog, or what is likely to have happened, certainly if you're not aware, I was a police officer. I wasn't in the dog branch, I didn't work with police dogs, I did other things, and but I was around enough police dog handlers and chatted to them because I'm interested in dog training. So what tends to happen with these dogs, before somebody wants to correct me, when the dog is around people, the dog is working or training, so that's where the dog is out in the world, and then when they're not working or training, they're put back in the van, or they're then put in the kennel when they go home. The kennel or the crate in the back of the van is then teaching the dog it's your time to switch off now. I've seen some dogs that can't switch off. Lots of them can and most of them can, but I've also seen dogs that are just so aroused that they can't switch off. So now that this young lady has retired from the police, we are helping her say to her, your life is different now. It's not, you don't have a working life, you'll hopefully have an enriched retired life, but when you're around people, you can relax. You can relax and you can play, you don't need to work, and when you're in the house you can relax and switch off. So up until now, if she has been kennelled, that's when she switches off, but when she's been around people she's on, and that's what the couple who have adopted her are finding a little bit of difficulty with, is the fact that she's can't switch off when she is in the house around them, because it's kind of like, what are we doing? So we're working on that, really interesting. I put some nice content up on my Facebook page, so I don't know what date you'll be listening to this. You could be listening to this in 2026 for all I know, but the content's there, and it's all on YouTube as well, so you can have a look there. So that's been an interesting case, and I'm looking forward to getting into some training with that dog. Next one, I'm doing a remote training session just now, so I do offer remote training for people who can't work with me in person. It works really well, so if you're having difficulty with your dog and you're not local to Glasgow or can't travel here, then please get in touch with me. We do remote training and we do them successfully. We get decent results. So basically we just chat through certain things, we go through protocols, give video examples, and then we check in next time. And we can even do live training depending on the setup. So I'm working with one woman just now, and she's in Ireland, and she's got 3 dogs, and I do a remote training session with them. So she props up her phone or her laptop, and we do live training over the internet. I've done some in the US. Just finished one in Australia as well, and I've done a couple in England this week, so they work well. So if you're having difficulty with your dog, get in touch with me. My email address is info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk, so that's info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. So if you're needing help with that, then get in touch. The one that I did this week, the woman's had big aha moments, and she's reevaluated a lot of the activities that she's doing with her dog, and to the dog's the betterment of the dog's welfare. So that was a really nice feedback that this lady gave me. Super cool and kind person, and she wants to do the best by her dog. So really lovely. Now just on that, before I move on to the topic of arousal, I've been running this my social media now since 2009, thereabouts, 2009, 2010. I started the social media stuff. Started my training just before that, maybe a couple of years before that. I think 17th year I'm now running, and I know how hard it can be to the journey, and it is at times the slog of promoting positive content, content about positive training online, and being shouted down a lot. I know what that's like, and I've got lots of strategies. I've talked about this before briefly. Lots of strategies in dealing with it. I just kind of laugh it off now. Kind of cheeky back sometimes. Sometimes I just don't take them on and I delete it. I got a nice comment the other day from somebody who'd said they'd saw one of my posts, and it had planted a seed which had grown and changed the life with their dog, okay, and significantly. And that was just from one simple post of maybe 80 or 100 words or something like that. So this stuff works. Putting content out there reaches people. What I say is, we reach the people who are on board with us, so that's like yourselves, hopefully, who are listening to this stuff. I aim to enhance your knowledge so that you get better at doing what you're already doing. The people who want to do this, we reach them as well, so they're kind of like on the fence maybe, or just starting their journey, and we help them get further along their journey. The people who don't agree with us, we maybe give them one thing that they can do that makes their dog's life less aversive and less harsh than it was. Okay, and the people that don't want to learn this stuff and want to continue down a prehistoric and notion of how to raise a dog, they're not our people, and I've been trying long enough to reach some of them. Now, this is a spectrum people are on, so it's like a sliding scale, and at different stages in our lives we're on different parts of that scale. So I'm a significantly, I don't know if I want to say softer person than I was before. Probably. Just as I'm getting older, and it happens with many people, and I know it happens with a lot of men, as they just get kind of softer and a little bit more sentimental as they get older. I don't want harshness and contention and strife in my life. I want a relaxed and happy and content life. So that means that sometimes people slide further down the scale towards us, or along the scale rather, towards us, and we can reach those people. So keep putting out your content, keep promoting this stuff, please do, it works, okay, because you're listening to this. Okay, so we'll move on to the topic of arousal. So arousal is, we're going to talk about physical or physiological arousal, okay, and emotional arousal, and they both kind of go together, and the effect that has on our dogs. I was at a lecture or a conference a few years ago, and there was one of the presenters, Lindsay Wood-Brown, her name is, and she's in somewhere in the US, I want to say kind of Virginia or the Carolinas, somewhere around there. Okay, she's an excellent behaviour consultant, and she did a lecture on arousal, and what Lindsay was saying was arousal is the new dominance. And this was a few years ago now, so we moved on a little bit from there. But what she meant by that was, when she goes into shelters to do work 15, 20, 25 years ago, people would say the dog is doing X, Y and Z because they're showing dominance. Now I'll not talk about that in this podcast episode, but we're moving away. We have moved away from that model, or most progressive people have moved away from that model. And but what she's saying now is people say the dog's doing this because of arousal or because of over-arousal. Now, and she says that's a false premise to have. Okay, so arousal is subject to the conditions that we live in. Okay, so just now, it is, as I'm doing this, it's a Saturday morning. I'm sitting on my couch. I've just had my breakfast, and I'm in a relatively low state of arousal. Okay, emotional and physiological arousal. Okay, nice and relaxed. I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm thinking. I'm keeping myself down. This is the third time I've tried to record this episode, and the first couple of times I tried to do it last night and during the week, and the conditions weren't right for me to do this. So a few other things going on, okay, and the conditions weren't right, so I wasn't happy with the product that I had recorded. Okay, so now I've got my jiu-jitsu class. I'm going to talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu in a little while. I've got my jiu-jitsu class in just under 2 hours. I teach the class, but then I spar at the end. Okay, so that then is a change in the state of arousal. 3 of the guys are competing today, so they're at a competition right now as I'm doing this, and their state of arousal will be different because competition is different from sparring, and sparring is different from sitting on a couch, and sparring is different from just working through and drilling the exercises or the techniques. Okay, so our arousal level is subject to the conditions, and that's the same as with our dog, and we can change those conditions. And if we understand what changes those conditions, we can change the dog's arousal level. Talking about Logan, my dog, okay, so I don't know if this has been, because this is the second time I've had to try and record this morning, because it didn't work the first time, so I don't know if I mentioned him for the first time in this podcast. Logan's a bulldog. He's nearly 10 years old. I've had him for 8.5 years, and he was hyper aroused, right, really over aroused when he was outside, and we had to work through a whole bunch of things. So I've had a big dog who some people would label as high drive. I don't like that term, but one of these, full on dogs who would play and play and play and play and play. And with the genetics, the bulldog genetics that are there, that then was a kind of perfect storm for over-arousal, and then he couldn't settle down and couldn't listen. Right, so what causes over-arousal? Look at the physical or physiological things first. So increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, changes in neurotransmitters and hormones, okay, and respiration rate. So those are things that go with physical and physiological arousal. And if we think about that for a second, what things cause those? Okay, so the temperature, okay, causes our respiration rate to increase. And then if we exercise, so if we throw a ball for our dog over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and the dog is sprinting, catching the ball and bringing it back, sprinting, catching the ball and bringing it back, and we do that repeatedly, then the dog can become over-aroused. Okay, so those things can happen there. Okay, so our exercise regime, same as with tug, playing lots and lots and lots of tug over and over and over again without giving the dog a break can cause arousal to come up. The dog I talked about at the top of the hour, the police dog, the Malinois, a couple of the comments that I'd put on this week, because I was teaching the dog relaxation, so we're trying to teach the opposite of arousal, come down from that arousal, and I use food and petting and gentle body language or gentle feedback from us as the reinforcers for that. Somebody had commented, if the dog already likes the ball, why aren't you using the ball as the reinforcer? And I say to that is because any ball activity with Jet, this dog, is not conducive towards relaxation. Okay, it's actually going to cause more arousal because she's excited about seeing the dog, and the movement, the physical movement of our body through space at speed then enhances that. So we want much lower key reinforcers. Okay, so that's how the effect of physical stuff can have on the dog. Okay, now we've got a combination of which we'll cover at the end after the next part. The next part is emotional arousal. Emotional arousal can happen when we're up. Okay, so people talk about their blood being up. Okay, and that's literally your blood is up, you get higher blood pressure, your blood pressure comes up, and that, as we just talked about there, can be about physicality, about exercise, but it can also be about how you're feeling. Okay, so various emotions can cause your your arousal to come up or to come down. And if you're having a bad time, overwhelmed, overexcited, anxious, angry, frustrated, then that can cause an increase in arousal. Now we'll look a little bit about frustration just for a second. So frustration is the emotion that you feel when you're trying to do something, expecting a result, and it's not working. Okay. Now how that relates to a behaviour model is that we've got one of the behaviour practices called extinction. Okay, so that's if you press the button for the lift and the lift doesn't come, and you keep punching. Okay, so that's you're going through an extinction process, and then you go and then you take the stairs. Alright, so you've gone through an extinction. Your behaviour has gone through an extinction event there, where you have punched it and it's not worked. So you tried it because when I press the button for the lift comes. It's not coming, so you press the button harder and faster. You then become frustrated that it's not coming, and then you bin it. Okay. Now, what can happen a lot is that if we're not teaching our dogs to switch off properly, or not teaching them what the rules are, say for example the rule of the ball. Okay. So the dog chases the ball, bring it back, chase the ball, bring it back, and we do that 5 or 6 times. This is not what I recommend we do with the ball. I'll talk about the games that we may or may not, or should not be playing with our dogs in future episodes. So the dog is now starting to become aroused physically. Okay, so the respiration rate is up, heart rate is up, the blood's coming up, and all the rest of it. Okay, so they're moving, and they're starting to get a little bit tired. We take the ball from them and put them back, and put the ball away. Now, what has happened previously is the dog brings the ball back and drops at our feet and then looks at us, and we then reinforce that attention with a shot at the ball. And if the dog doesn't know what the rule is, they will continue to give us that attention, expecting the ball, but we've put the ball away without teaching the dog we're done now and moving into another exercise. So the dog starts becoming frustrated that they're doing the behaviour of looking at us, paying attention to us, and asking for the ball and not getting the ball. And then what can happen is they start barking and jumping up on us. Alright, and then often what happens is when they bark and jump up on us, we tell them no, push them down, and an older model would be then to start physically correcting them. Okay, choke chain, poking them in the ribs, okay, squirting them in the face with a water pistol, strangling them with a slip lead or whatever. Okay, so that comes from frustration. Okay, now going back a little bit to the emotions, if you go into an environment and you don't know what to do and you're not equipped for dealing with it, we can now start becoming aroused or over-aroused. Okay, and that's when you start the panic, I'm overwhelmed, all those feelings. Okay, and that can happen with our dogs. So we see it often with our dogs. I see it with puppies and young dogs. We take the dog out to an environment, people want to come up and say hi to your dog, other dogs come up and want to say hi to the dog, and the dog starts getting over-aroused or overstimulated. And then when they get overstimulated, they start goofing off, jumping up on us, biting the leads, pulling at it, and all the rest of it. Okay, so that's when we get emotional over-arousal. Okay, now they link together as well. Alright, if we look at football fans or soccer fans, who calls it soccer? Just the US, I think. Canada, I think they call it soccer. Australia probably, because they've got football. they've got their rules. Aussie rules football, which we call Aussie rules football, or Australian rules football, they just call football. Okay, so we're talking about football, European football, or soccer. So those fans that go abroad, other than Scotland, other than the Tartan Army, Ireland are really well behaved as well, the Irish fans. So they go out, they're all together, lots of drink, okay, and a mob mentality, and then the team starts playing. So we've got a number of factors there. We've got the group dynamic, the alcohol, and the arousal of the game, okay, and that's when the bother starts, okay. So sometimes there can be trouble starting, and then that's when the arousal is a part of the conditions, yep, or is caused by the conditions, and then that arousal stops people thinking properly. When I used to work at football games when I was in the police, I used to see people who I knew these people, and I would see them at the game, and I would look at that person acting that way, and that's because they were over-aroused because of the circumstances. So, as I said to you before, arousal is subject to conditions. So we change the conditions and we take that individual out, and I would see them in the street next week when they were calm and sober, and I mean emotionally sober as well as physically sober from alcohol, and they'd be like a completely different person, okay. Put them in that environment, that's how they behave. So you'll see this in dog training classes. With some dogs, a dog training class isn't or may not be the appropriate venue for that dog's learning, and we take them into a dog training class, and the dog becomes overwhelmed and over aroused and now can't think, okay. And it's because they're in the wrong conditions. We take that dog out, we start practicing with them in the house, we do it a little bit in the garden, okay, we do it at the park far away from dogs and people, and the dog is able to calmly think and settle themselves, okay. Alright, so hopefully you're with me so far. Now, I'll go on a couple of examples from Jiu-Jitsu. Alright, so if you don't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is an offshoot from traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So the lineage is kind of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu into Judo, and then Judo influenced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, and it's now its own sport. So it's it's wrestling on the ground. It's really full on physically, and lots of people think it can be it's like a fight. Okay, now it's not a fight we're playing. Okay, it's only a fight when it's an actual fight. Even competition isn't a fight. It's just competition. It's just a bout. When I see when I get unskilled, so people that come in, I've been doing it for 14 years now. People come in not knowing how to do it, and then they become overwhelmed. When they become overwhelmed, they then start fighting, and I say to people it should feel like dancing, not weightlifting. Okay, so relax, play, keep breathing, don't hold your breath. They then panic because somebody's sitting on top of them or putting pressure on top of them, and then the arousal comes up. Okay, and one of the skills in the discipline of Jiu-Jitsu or BJJ is saying to people, can you listen to my instructions while you are sparring or while you're drilling or practicing this thing? Some people can easily, and some people, I think everybody can. That's my opinion. Everybody can learn how to do this, but can you listen to my instructions while you are physically, something has been physically demanded of you? Okay, so going back to our dogs in that example, your dog is doing a full-on training routine. They're getting tired. They're expecting the ball or the tug toy perhaps and not getting it, and so the arousal starts going up because they're maybe getting a little bit frustrated, maybe, or they're just getting tired, or they don't understand what you're asking them to do because they're confused because they're learning how to do it, and all those things add to the arousal. Okay, and then when they start adding to arousal, they can find it challenging to listen to our instruction or direction. Okay, so you'll see this with dogs when they're going into that example of Jiu-Jitsu. I see this a lot with dog play. I think it's very, very, very similar to guys sparring at Jiu-Jitsu. So I will see two two of them are students sparring, and most of us we've got an older bunch. We've got a bunch of people in their early 20s, and then lots of people in their 30s and onwards. A real split in the class. So they start sparring, and as they get tired, so Saturday class is a 2-hour class, we get 6 or 8 sparring, 6 rounds of sparring towards the end of the class, 5-minute rounds. As they get tired, they either start to relax and ease into it more, or they start actually going up the way, and that's when injuries happen, because they're getting tired, and I'm saying to them, you need to slow down, but they can't slow down because their blood's up. Okay, and these things are very, very, very similar to our dogs. The parallels are endless with jiu-jitsu and dog play. So if we put 2 young dogs together and they start playing, okay, they play and play and play and play and play and play and play, and what they do is they basically wind each other up, and the arousal starts going up, the adrenaline starts going up, the respiration starts going up, and if one of them does something wrong in that moment, then that's got potential for a fight. Okay, and that's like when you're a child and you're playing with your brother for a long period of time, and then you just start getting tired and actually just need a break and to cool off, and then somebody pushes somebody a little bit too hard, okay, and then that's when the fight breaks out. So you see how the conditions there are the 10 minutes, or the 2 minutes, the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes of continuous play, and what we need to do with our dogs is break that. So we stop, slow down, relax, offer a piece of food, maybe give the dog a drink of water, see and assess how the dog is, and look at it, say, how are you feeling just now, and how the dog drinks, what they do after the dog drinks. Will the dog snatch the food out of your hand, or will they take it gently? Can they stop and stand still, or sit down and or lie down on their own without being asked? These are all factors of how well they're dealing with that aroused state. Okay. How we then train that is you train these relaxed behaviours a lot. So the 2 things that we work through with every dog, I work through the focus game, teaching your dog to pay attention to you, and I work through a relaxation protocol. And both of those things, one is, can you pay attention to me? And 2, can you relax? Okay. We're now asking the dog, there's a dog there, I know you're going to start getting aroused, okay, but can you do this instead? And it's to get the dog back into their thinking brain. Okay. Can you think? Can you work with me? Can you pay attention to me? Now, there's a great film called The Wild, I think it is, and it's from probably the 90s. It's got Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin in it, and Anthony Hopkins is a self-made billionaire. He's married to a woman who's a model, who's played by Elle Macpherson, and she's a model, and she's having an affair with the Alec Baldwin character called Will, who is a photographer. The men go out into they go on a plane to Alaska for just a trip, and there's a bird strike and they crash the plane. Now, Alec Baldwin is a self-made billionaire. He's worked out how to do everything. So he's one of these kind of unique individuals. And as he's travelling into the wilderness, he's got this old survival manual from like the 1800s or something like this, and he's reading it. And it's an indication of who he is as a man. I'm going to prepare myself for this environment. Now, there's a scene in it where they get and the premise of the film is they're getting hunted by a bear as well, right? So that's the premise of it. So having to survive this, both get out of the wilderness in Alaska and they're being hunted. So there's a scene in it where Alec Baldwin's having a meltdown. The Will character is having a meltdown, okay? And Anthony Hopkins' character says to him, "How do you make fire from ice?" Okay, so he basically just ignores the tantrum, which is what I'm suggesting we do with our dog. How do you make fire from ice? And that enrages him even more. Okay, and then what's interesting about it, he says, "Will, can you think? Can you think?" And he's asking him, get back into your thinking brain and out of your emotional brain. So that's when we train the dog to the relaxation protocol and the focus game. Can you think? Can you work back? Can you come back down from where you are to working with me? Those take practice, and it takes practice from us and from the dog of how to do this well, and it's nuanced. Knowing when to go. I'm not asking the dog to think here. I'm just going to take the dog far enough away and give the dog a break. Okay, and then the break changes the conditions, allows the dog to come back down and relax, and then we can try again. Okay, so hopefully that's given you some sort of. I know it's been a little bit disjointed, but it's given us an idea of what arousal is, and when our dogs start acting up. Arousal is at play, or can be at play, but it's at play because the conditions are allowing the arousal to arise. Okay, so and those conditions could be: I'm overtired, I've had too much social interaction, I'm getting frustrated because there's something there that I want and I can't get, I'm too hot, I can't cope with the circumstances that are going on here. Okay, I'm worried, frightened, anxious about that other dog or that person or that car, and on and on and on. And then the dog starts spiraling out of control, becomes over aroused, and then can't calm down. So we need to take a break from that, independently teach these settled and relaxed behaviours. Can you work with me? Can you settle down? Okay, and then we put the two of them and we go in and out of those two models. Very lastly on this, okay, it's another jiu-jitsu example. A few weeks ago, I had two guys come in, two young lads, and they were, I don't know how old they were about 17, and they wanted to come in. When I asked them on the phone why they wanted, what was their interest in training jiu-jitsu, and it's usually a wee bit of a warning. They say, I watch the UFC and I want to do a bit, you know, so yeah, okay, right, so the Ultimate Fighting Championship, right, so they come in because they want to be a couple, these, I'm not being, okay, this will sound a little bit harsh, okay, these two wee skinny boys come into the class, okay, because that's what they were, really immature, didn't listen, okay, and then at the end, towards the end of the class, it said, can we spar with each other? And I said, yeah, cool. Okay, now what they took from that immediately was, we're doing it right now. They hadn't listened to what the structure of the class was. They were taking a break between two sparring rounds, and they just started sparring. And I said to the two, I went to stop them. I said, stop, guys, stop. And I had to go in and physically grab the two of them by their jackets and pull them apart. I said, stop, right? So what had happened there was they had got so into it and so aroused and excited really, really, really quickly that they just didn't hear what I had to say. And that happens with our dogs, and when they're young it happens very quickly. A dog starts playing with another dog and you start calling your dog and you're not even on the dog's radar at that point. The dog cannot hear what you're saying. We have to do something else, and that's because they become high very, very, very quickly. Okay, so break and play, focus on me. I've already taught focus and I've taught it regularly. Go back and play again. Okay, then we're watching for the arousal coming back up. Can you listen to me? If you can listen to me and respond, you can keep playing. If you don't listen to me and can't respond, I'm going to interrupt it, and I'm going to interrupt it fully until you can listen and respond and calm down. Then you can play again. And this is how we teach our dogs to regulate their emotions. Okay, lot in it. Lots of people can't do it. Lots of people can't regulate their emotions. They become over aroused and over emotional very, very, very quickly. If we can't do it, how can we ask our dogs to do it? If we haven't got an awareness of it, then there's every likelihood is that our dogs haven't got an awareness of it. Now, having said that, it took me a long, long, long time. I've really only got a handle on this in the last 5 years in my own life. But I did recognise it before with Logan, so I could recognise, even though I'm having difficulty regulating here, I understand that is what is going on with you, and I can help you helping him helped me hugely, hugely. I'm massively indebted to my dog for the gifts that he's given me and what he has taught me. Alright, so lots to think about there, hopefully. Alright, and hopefully it hasn't been too garbled. If you can, yeah, so if you're on, I think you can leave reviews on iTunes, so if you can leave and please leave a 5-star review, right? Put a 1-star review and say this is a lot of rubbish, nobody will listen to it otherwise, okay? If you're interested in coming on, so if you're a dog person, okay, so if you get an interesting hobby, an interesting journey with your own dog, I'm interested in hearing from other trainers. I've got my friend who runs boarding and dog walking and dog daycare, so Carlan's absolutely amazing. She's going to be coming on soon. I've got some other trainers coming on the podcast to show some of their activities, and I've got another few other cool guests coming on, hopefully, for some interesting conversations. So if you think you've got something interesting to say, or want topics for me to cover, right now, again, a topic is something like this, like what is arousal and how do we deal with it. So that's a topic. It's not, I've got this problem with my dog and can you do a podcast on it? Okay, no, that's a lesson, right? Slightly different. So these bigger concepts, what is positive reinforcement training, what is punishment, what is classical conditioning, and how does it affect my dog? Okay, so something that you could kind of write an essay about. Yeah, so if you've got any topics that you want covered, then ping me an email, info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. Alright, much love to you folks. I will catch you next time. Thanks for listening.